the empty basket, and the broken system. Have you ever stepped out to the coop on a cool morning, carrying your egg basket with real hope, only to find noisy hens, empty nest boxes, and not a single egg waiting for you? You feed them every day. You buy that costly commercial grain. You protect them from weather, predators, and stress. Yet suddenly the eggs slow down or stop completely. And you start asking yourself, are these hens just taking a break? Or is there something deeper wrong with the way many of us are raising poultry today? Welcome back to Farmyard Care. If you are keeping laying hens right now, you probably already know how expensive it has become to keep a flock productive. Feed prices keep rising, and many backyard keepers are quietly wondering whether the eggs they collect are truly worth the monthly cost. But here is the question worth asking. What if the problem is not your skill as a homesteader? What if the real problem is that the modern poultry system has trained us to believe birds cannot thrive unless we keep pouring processed grain into the feeder? Today we are going to look closely at that layer hen illusion. I'll introduce you to 4 remarkable, often forgotten birds that were once common on practical homesteads before commercial layers became the standard. These birds are strong foragers. They can find much of their own food. They offer dependable production when managed well, and they can cost far less to keep month after month. And we will go even further. I'll also share old-fashioned feeding methods, Amish-style practices, and living plant systems that can help you cut feed costs dramatically and build a more independent farmyard. If real food independence matters to you, hit that subscribe button now. Let's question what we've been taught, rebuild smarter systems, and look at our farmyards with fresh eyes. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Part Make, the modern layer hen trap. Before we talk about the 4 birds, we need to be honest about modern laying hens. This is not about blaming chickens. Hens are useful, familiar, and still valuable animals on many farms. But many backyard poultry guides skip one important truth. The modern layer was not created for a low-input homestead system. Most modern laying breeds were selected for commercial-style production, where feed, lighting, calcium, and protein are controlled every single day. They perform best on a steady, concentrated ration, often around Tasnavets tokos to Tasnu tokos protein, with a reliable supply of calcium to keep eggshells strong. When those inputs suddenly disappear, and the bird is expected to live mainly on pasture, weeds, and kitchen scraps, production can drop fast. The reason is simple. A hen can fill her crop with bulky, low-nutrient food and still fail to get enough protein, minerals, and energy for egg production. Her body then chooses survival first and reproduction second. So instead of turning feed into eggs, she conserves energy, and laying may slow down or stop completely. Winter makes this even harder. Modern hens are especially vulnerable to 3 common pressures: shorter daylight, seasonal molting, and cold weather. When daylight drops below roughly 12 to 14 hours, the bird's reproductive system naturally slows. Add molting and freezing temperatures, and you can be feeding expensive grain for weeks or months while the nest boxes stay empty. That is the painful part many keepers discover too late. A hen may keep eating every day, but her egg output can decline sharply as she ages. Over time, you may spend a lot on feed during periods when she gives very little back. The deeper issue is that many modern layers have lost some of the hard foraging ability that older farm birds once had. They were not mainly bred to survive from your land. They were bred to perform inside a controlled feeding system. So if we want to reduce dependence on the feed store, we need to look back at birds that still know how to work with the land. Part Yerku, Bird Hamar Mek, the Khaki Campbell duck. The first bird many people overlook is the Khaki Campbell duck. If you want a serious egg producer that also has strong natural foraging habits, this breed deserves your attention. Khaki Campbells are famous for laying an impressive number of eggs in a year, often competing strongly with many chicken breeds. But the real advantage is how they feed themselves when given access to the right environment. They actively search for insects, earthworms, slugs, aquatic plants, and small invertebrates. Instead of scratching up garden beds like chickens often do, they use their bills to sweep, probe, and filter through mud, wet grass, and shallow water. And no, you do not need a large pond to keep them. That is one of the biggest myths about ducks. A Khaki Campbell can do well with a shallow stock tank, a small kiddie pool, or any clean water source deep enough for washing the eyes and nostrils. They need water, but they do not need a lake. What makes this duck especially useful on a homestead is its resilience. Ducks often handle damp, cold weather better than chickens, and Khaki Campbells can keep laying well when managed properly through the colder months. They were also developed to be less broody, which means they are less likely to stop laying for weeks just to sit on a nest. Their eggs are usually larger than chicken eggs, rich in flavor, and valued by many families for baking and cooking. For a farmyard that needs steady egg production with less drama and stronger foraging ability, the Khaki Campbell is one of the most practical birds you can raise. Part Yedek, bird hamarierku, the Guinea fowl. The second bird is loud, tough, alert, and incredibly useful, the Guinea fowl. If you have a larger property and your goal is not only eggs but also natural pest control, guineas can become one of the hardest working animals on the farm. Guinea fowl originally come from the grasslands and scrublands of Africa, where food is not always easy to find. Because of that background, they are strong walkers, constant searchers, and excellent foragers. They can cover dry, brushy areas where many poultry breeds would struggle to find enough food. Their real strength is pest control. Guineas are known for eating ticks, grasshoppers, beetles, and many other insects. They move through pastures, orchards, fence lines, and rough edges of the property like a living cleanup crew. For farms dealing with ticks or heavy insect pressure, this alone can make them valuable. They are not the highest egg producers. A guinea hen may lay far fewer eggs than a chicken, often somewhere around 100 eggs a year, depending on season, management, and conditions. But those eggs are thick-shelled, nutrient-dense, and useful. More importantly, guineas often keep working during hot weather, when many chickens slow down badly. Now, you do need to understand their personality. Guineas are vocal. They will sound the alarm at predators, strangers, and sometimes anything that feels unusual to them. But that same noise can help protect the farmyard. Once they know their home territory, they often stay loyal to it and spend much of the day patrolling, foraging, and keeping pests under pressure. If you have the space and can handle the sound, guinea fowl are more than just birds. They are a natural security system, pest control crew, and lean meat source wrapped into one tough farm animal. Pors, bird hamarierek, the Coturnix quail. Now, what if you do not have acres of land? What if you live in a suburban area, have close neighbors, or need a quiet bird that fits into a small space? That is where the Coturnix quail becomes extremely interesting. Coturnix quail are one of the best choices for small-scale food production. They mature incredibly fast and can begin laying eggs in about 2 weeks. That speed is almost unbelievable when you compare it to chickens, ducks, or larger poultry. In a short amount of time, a small setup can begin producing real food. They are also very space efficient. In a secure, well-managed enclosure, they need far less room than chickens. For many small homesteaders, urban growers, elderly keepers, or single-person households, this makes quail a practical option where larger birds simply would not work. Their egg production is impressive for their size. Coturnix hens can lay large numbers of beautiful speckled eggs each year, often reaching 100 to 800 eggs under good management. The eggs are small, but they are rich, useful, and highly valued in many kitchens. Nutritionally, quail eggs are known for their concentrated levels of minerals and vitamins, including iron, potassium, and vitamin B12. Another advantage is that hens lay without needing a male. They are also much quieter than chickens or ducks, which makes them easier to keep in places where noise matters. And if they are given safe access to soil, plants, and insects, they will naturally peck, search, and forage in their own small way. If land, noise, or space has been holding you back from producing your own eggs, the Coturnix quail may be the small bird that changes everything. Part Hing, bird. Hamarchors, the Muscovy duck. The fourth bird is where things become especially interesting because it once had a strong place in practical homesteading, yet many modern backyard keepers hardly consider it anymore. I am talking about the Muscovy duck. One thing that surprises many people is that Muscovies are different from the common duck breeds most of us know. Native to Central and South America, these birds were valued by indigenous communities long before European settlers arrived. They were useful because they could support a household food system with very little daily input when given room to forage. Muscovies are powerful natural foragers. They hunt insects, mosquitoes, small frogs, tender aquatic plants, and whatever suitable food they can find around the yard, pond edge, orchard, or damp pasture. In return, they provide rich eggs and very lean, flavorful meat while asking far less from the feed bag than many conventional poultry breeds. Another major advantage is their maternal instinct. A good Muscovy female can nest, brood, hatch, and raise her young with very little help. That means your flock has the ability to renew itself season after season, instead of depending entirely on purchased chicks or constant human management. And for many small farms or backyards, the best part is this. Muscovies do not quack like regular ducks. They communicate with soft hisses, trills, and quiet sounds, making them one of the most neighbor-friendly poultry choices you can keep. They are calm, useful, hard-working birds that can turn a simple farmyard into a more self-sustaining system. Part Vets, the Amish feeding secrets. Now that we have looked at the right kinds of birds, we need to talk about feeding them more wisely. Not just how to feed them, but how to stop wasting money on feed that could be stretched much further. Old farm families, including many Amish communities, have long understood that natural methods can make grain more useful. And one of the simplest methods is fermentation. Raw grains contain phytic acid, a natural compound that can bind to minerals like zinc, iron, and calcium, making them harder for birds to absorb. When you soak grain or scratch feed in clean water for a few days, until it develops a light, sour smell and gentle bubbling, fermentation begins to break that barrier down. The result is feed that is easier to digest and more beneficial for the gut. Birds often eat it eagerly, use it more efficiently, and may waste less. Fermented feed is not magic, and it does not replace balanced nutrition, but it can help you get more value from the grain you already buy. Another old method is deep litter, especially in winter. Instead of stripping the coop bare every few days, you build up layers of dry straw, leaves, or wood shavings over the droppings. When managed correctly, the lower layers begin to compost slowly. That microbial activity can create warmth, reduce odor, and give the birds a drier, more comfortable floor during cold months. The key is to keep adding dry carbon material so the litter stays balanced, not wet and sour. Then there are kitchen scraps. Many households throw away useful food every week. Cooked rice, potatoes, pasta, vegetable trimmings, and other safe scraps can help supplement the flock when given in moderation. Even eggshells can be dried, crushed finely, and fed back as a calcium source. On a well-run homestead, waste becomes a resource, and every small saving adds up. Part Yoth, creating a living feed system. To truly reduce dependence on the feed store, you need more than a bag of grain. You need what I call a living feed system. That means designing your yard, garden, and animal areas so food is growing, crawling, falling, and regenerating around your birds. One powerful example is insect protein. Black soldier fly larvae and mealworms can be raised from organic waste in simple systems, and they are rich in protein and amino acids. Instead of buying every bit of protein in processed form, you can produce part of it right on the homestead from scraps that might otherwise be thrown away. But we can go further because feed can also be planted. Comfrey, especially bocking chores, is a strong perennial plant that returns year after year and produces large leaves that many livestock keepers value as a supplemental green feed. Mulberry trees are another excellent choice. When mature, they can drop sweet, energy-rich fruit at the exact time many birds are actively foraging in warm weather. You can also grow amaranth and sunflowers in rough corners of the yard. They produce seeds that birds can harvest or that you can cut and offer later. Calendula can be grown for its bright petals, which are often valued for supporting rich yolk color. Dried nettle is another traditional plant used as a mineral-rich supplement when handled and prepared properly. The idea is simple: plant once, manage wisely, and let the system become more productive over time. Every pound of food your land produces is one less pound you need to buy. That is how a farmyard begins to shift from a monthly expense into a living, renewing food system. Part 8. The permaculture shift, reclaiming independence. Here is the deeper lesson. Self-sufficiency has never been about buying more equipment or spending more money. It has always been about watching nature closely, understanding how animals behave, and building systems that allow those animals to do useful work. When birds are locked in one static run and fed only from a bag, they become an expense. They eat, they scratch the same ground bare, and the keeper carries the full cost. But when birds are rotated through garden beds in a chicken tractor, allowed to clean up weeds, scratch through old plant matter, or patrol an orchard for pests, they become part of the farm's labor force. In that kind of system, birds are not just producing eggs. They are turning waste into manure, helping control insects, disturbing soil surfaces, cleaning up fallen fruit, and harvesting some of their own food. The same flock that once felt expensive can become an asset when placed in the right design. Every bird we have talked about, the Khaki Campbell, the Guinea fowl, the Coturnix quail, and the Muscovy duck, has value because it still carries strong natural behaviors. These birds can forage, adapt, and contribute to a balanced farmyard when managed with common sense. They do not need us to control every bite they eat. They need access to land, safety from predators, clean water, and a system that lets them do what they were built to do. Conclusion: the call to action. You do not need a huge farm to start moving in this direction. And you do not need to change everything overnight. Start with one bird that fits your space and your goals. Try fermenting the feed you already have. Plant one comfrey root, one mulberry tree, or one patch of sunflowers. Begin with small steps, and over time those steps can lower your feed costs, strengthen your food independence, and make your homestead more resilient. If this changed the way you think about your backyard flock, hit that like button so more people can learn how to build smarter, more independent farm systems. And tell me in the comments, which of these 4 birds surprised you the most, or which living feed plant would you start growing first? Make sure to subscribe to Farmyard Care so you do not miss more practical lessons on farming, gardening, livestock, and homesteading. Until next time, stop depending on the system for every bag of feed, and start growing more of your own independence right in the farmyard.